over Anakin. I have the high ground. You underestimate my power. Don't try it. Ah. Oh. 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 You were the chosen one. It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them. Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness. Oh. Ah. I hate you. You were my brother Anakin. I loved you. Ah. Oh. Ah. Ah. Oh. Ah.
We are done with the scream rock on the job site. That's it. It's banned. Don't try and play it on the radio anymore. All that screaming like type rock stuff, it's gone. Job site said no more, dude. Absolutely no more. You guys are out of control with this scream rock. That's not rock music, dude. Seriously.
He's like, nope, I'm out.
Who is the weird guy?
Oh,
blinking
your band's what conviction, right?
Fabian, who's the weird guy blinking behind you?
He kind of looks like the Mad TV kid. He kind of looks like the Mad TV kid.
Yeah.
Or the Mad kid. Not Mad TV, the Mad. Good old Mad Nick.
You one, it's low-key distracting. Yeah, I'm like, can you stop looking at me, little boy?
He's like, no, I got you.
Oh, I'm so fucking stoked. Yeah.
I was just watching a video about exits and their bassist goes off.
Was that the live?
I low-key miss exits and trails, but I do like exits. Hey. Oh. They look beautiful. I just don't want them to burn you. Fuck yeah. Way to go, man. I feel like I should grab some Star Wars. Should I pour my iced coffee into the Star Wars? Oh, yes.
I feel like Spite. That sounds like Spite.
Damien. Am I supposed to be listening to a song right now? I can't hear shit. Where is the song?
On the watch stream.
Oh, there we go.
You missed the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be throwing down big time.
Ian, you say that, and then I never see you in the pit, bro.
Well, because I can only throw down for like 30 seconds. I'm not very fit. Gosh.
I swear I'm in there. I'm in there for 30 seconds and then I get some water.
I'm gonna tell them about how
It's the dabs. It's the dabs.
Yeah.
It's okay. I couldn't move after the last show for like 3 days, so 5 days. Stop.
Just gets outed.
Yeah. I guess actually though, my mic has not been live on the live stream this whole time, so that's kind of awkward. But that's sometimes the technicalities. It is what it is, right? Whatever. Who cares? Hi guys, welcome to the With Conviction show now. And that show that we were just talking about is so sick. And also, we're gonna do Kenobi stuff. And wow, this is it. Okay. So let's actually dive into some Star Wars here, because that's why we're all here today. And I know the promo stuff is cool, but we all obviously watched, like, I know there's a few of us in the Discord, me, Ian, we had Larry, and Nathan most nights. A couple of us would get together nightly. We'd wait until like 1 a.m. and we would watch them as they come out, right? And like a little watch party, and we would talk about it afterwards and stuff. But for the most part, I know within our group, we really haven't had this big discussion about it yet. And I've kind of been saving it for right now, but I know I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm sure you guys do too. So I mean,
Yeah. Tons.
Technically, I put these nights on, so
yeah, this is it was all Ian for sure.
Note number 2: where the hell is Terrence all the time? Come on, Terrence. You call yourself a Star Wars fan, you're never there.
Dude,
he's in a galaxy far away.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I'm
probably hanging out with the Gungans.
I do.
Opening statement here, though. Leia was cute as fuck. An adorable kid, perfectly cast. I was like, this is actually awesome. She was a little strong sometimes, and like they do call it out, like, you don't even, oh, how old are you? Kenobi's like, what the hell? Like, you're acting like an adult or something. But other than that, like, I was like, yo, this is a well cast, well put together character for like who a young Leia would be. Very strong, independent, you know what I mean? Like, funny, witty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I guess could say about the entire series isn't like a blanket statement is, as a fan who has felt a little wronged at how it seems this is like the past decade has been nothing but retconning elements that I really like Kyle Katarn no longer is a variable in regards to the Death Star plans. I feel that as a fan of that prequel era and original trilogy era, you can watch this, and despite any slight continuity errors you might pick out, you can find quick examples or reasons to be like, oh, but maybe this, so that it doesn't really matter going into it and feel satisfied, which I think is a real struggle with Star Wars nowadays, is which fan bases do they kind of adhere to and try to please. And in this one, I think you could be from any walk of the Star Wars fandom and enjoy it, which I think is huge.
I wanna say something on that note. You made mention on the continuity of things. Like there was a little bit of like online backlash about Leia's character and certain aspects of like how her and Ben's interactions, and why wouldn't she remember him in A New Hope and the way, and all that
Yeah.
stuff, right? And honestly, like you said, you're right. Like I think the way that they spun things in a way where, at the very end where he says, well, we can't tell anyone because then we're both endangered. So there's some things where they really did do a good job of making it all work anyways. I agree.
Who's to say that like why would Leia 10 years later call Obi-Wan if they didn't hang out before? Of all people,
Exactly.
she could have called Obi-Wan. Like,
and the
there was already past experience with them.
Yeah.
I think
100%.
that semi gets explained with current Senator Organa there, her dad, because he kind of says like, let's hope that should never exist. So I'm assuming that, and we can't ever know because we're not going to see that between the timeline gap filler conversation. But as a father to a daughter, you know what I mean? Maybe he says only when it's absolutely necessary do we ever fucking call this guy again.
And
You know
who's
what I
to say
mean?
Gail Organa didn't learn from his mistake, because him leaking even a bit of information put the other twin in danger. So who's to say Obi-Wan and the Gail Organa hadn't had a conversation being like, hey, so no matter what, whether it's you or anyone else, there are certain things we cannot say in a communication because like if she didn't like decide to not kill him, well, we'd be down one Skywalker.
Yeah.
Well, and we also are in a time period too where the Organas and the portion of the galaxy that they're still senators of, they're still a part of the Empire at this point.
Oh, and they're fearful. They're
So we
acknowledging
have
that
to
anytime they
see
have
a
something.
whole point where they join the rebellion too. That hasn't happened either, right? So
Speaking
they
of
become the rebellion.
Speaking
So on
of
the piece of Leia, like I think they did a really good job of capturing her spirit. I thought it was really cool to see her introduced that way and at the age she was. But I do kind of like, if you were a kid and you only ever met someone once, and it was a really meaningful experience, sure, but you only ever met that person once. Like, you're not going to know who to look for or how to look for them like 20 years freaking later or 15, 10 years. Like, you're just not, like, you're young. I think about people that my parents brought into my life that I met like once or twice or my brother's friends, right? Like, I don't know what they'd look like on the street.
That's true.
Yeah, and
No,
with that
I
too,
agree
like
with you.
she doesn't even send a transmission. She gives R2 something when they know they're near Tatooine. So
Yeah.
who's to say like that wasn't a last minute effort of being like, shit's going down. Oh, that's right. This General Kenobi's near here. Okay, where's that droid?
Where's his old droid?
And you make a good point. You make a good point there, because they complained. A big complaint was about how, like, oh, how would at her age, how wouldn't she remember that? And I disagree. I think at that age, there's tons that she'd forget.
I think she'd remember it because it was significant, especially the conversation about this guy told me some stuff about my parents and nobody else has done that before.
And it was like the
Yeah.
first time
Don't
she
think it
fell from the
as-
top of a building and got saved by the Force. Yeah, that would be a memorable.
Yeah,
you'd
she's
be
gonna
like,
I
remember.
don't think it would be
whoa.
as detailed
And
in her mind.
kidnapped as well.
There'd be a million other experiences after that, though, too. So it would be there. Don't get me wrong. It's a super crucial core memory of her life. But I don't know that she'd remember it in great detail, to be honest with you.
Not only that,
Yeah.
she's also considering the scene that we're also talking about with Obi-Wan and her, which I don't know if anyone else got their heartstrings pulled at when he was describing the traits and gifts she got from her parents.
That was
But
cool.
we got to also remember Leia's in a political family. Who's to say in those next 7 or 8 years she's not getting intense training on how to be a politician similar to her mother, whom for a majority of episode 1, tried to fooled everyone pretending to be a handmaiden. So there's a whole level of knowing how to withhold information if you know any, or in the case of her parents, knowing how to withhold information so that she knows what's important. He's a general, he's helped you, Jedi, lives here. If you ever need dire assistance, that's who to reach out to.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest issue I would have had it, because I don't have a whole lot of issues with like continuity and stuff. I'm like, look, there's always a way that they can wiggle the way around it. You know what I mean? But the biggest thing for me was that the Grand Inquisitor that you know and love from Rebels gets like smacked out right away, and you're like, are they gonna like? There's this whole like 3 or 4 episodes you going, are they gonna fix that? Like, are they just gonna leave it, or is that gonna be it?
It's just like, oh, by the way.
No, but that has been done so many fucking times that I came to expect it completely. Like, there is the whole, he's got 2 stomachs and blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, who cares about the anatomy of these freaking aliens? But, like, you know.
We just watched a character who's technically been stabbed in the same spot by Anakin twice still survive and make it back to Tatooine. Like, cauterizing wounds. If you don't finish them off, then, you know, a Jedi
unless you're Qui-Gon Jinn.
You watch them die.
Force heal is a thing.
And anger.
Like, you can't forget, Force heal is a thing.
The dark side keeps them alive.
Yeah,
that's one thing I did love. To go back to continuity quickly, I love how the very last thing we see of Vader is Palpatine playing one last mind game to make sure we get the Vader we need by episode 4. Because it's understandable that, especially with the whole I killed Anakin, which I thought was really powerful. Like having Vader admit, you didn't do that. I did that. I killed Anakin Skywalker. And then having him still holding that little bit of a grudge after and going on a rant. Like, I'm sending everyone. No resource will be spared. We're going after him.
When he said that, it was...
I wonder if your judgment in this is misplaced, Lord Vader. If you can't put your past behind you, how can you...
Yeah,
that was huge.
The moment
that was huge, like that.
The moment too when he was like, "You didn't kill Anakin, I did." It was almost like, "I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. That was me. Because so many times in his Jedi training, it was like he was overshadowed by he felt overshadowed anyways by Obi-Wan. He's like, "No, you didn't. No, this was my design. Like, you don't get to take credit for this." And
also,
but it also made it Obi-Wan later when he tells Luke that Darth Vader killed his father.
There's truth to it now. There's truth to it.
Yes.
So that, like, this is what I thought actually happened.
Yeah.
But I was last told by Vader. But also, like, I have to point out in this at some point, so I'm going to do it right now. The lines, the, like, little bits of lines that were throughout that were very clearly just, like, taken from other movies. I'm sure some people were pissed, but I loved it. Like, the moment where it was like, is your mind on matters clear, Lord Vader, is like exactly what he asks him when he's going to get Luke in Return of the Jedi. And like, then my friend is truly dead from Obi-Wan is like exactly what he says to him. Like,
I'll do what I must, you know.
Best one yet. I don't know about you guys, but I was hollering as soon as he did the classic "Hello there."
Oh yeah,
me too.
It was like,
who else? I love the karma in the first fight though. Like, if we're going to talk about the Vader fights, I think we should start from the first and go to the second because they very much need to be... They affect each other because I love the fact that we go into this knowing Obi-Wan thinks he killed Anakin on Mustafar.
Yeah.
Like, that sheer terror of him seeing his former Padawan there and then having to deal with it while having basically completely been disconnected from the Force.
Yeah.
And then
you made a good point back to that, too. You'd said... Now, he wasn't, the Grand Inquisitor in one of the first episodes says something along the lines of like how to hunt a Jedi on a basic level is they can't help themselves instinctively, right? Now, Vader knows that Obi-Wan, you said this, Nate, Vader knows that Obi-Wan is not a regular Jedi, so those tricks aren't going to work. He's not dragging those people out into the street and murdering them like animals to make him draw him out in any sense.
He's doing it
to send a message that your apprentice is gone. and I loved that.
The ruthlessness of the character,
Yeah.
and briefly, like Hayden Christensen's ability to really embody the physicality, and also when he did get a chance to actually be the voice, I thought he was very good at portraying the emotion, not just physically but emotionally, with how little of him we actually see
Mhm.
for those brief moments. And I thought, for as much hate as he got back in the day, this is a very huge thing for him, because Ian McGregor's been loved as
Yeah.
Obi-Wan
Yeah.
since the start. But Hayden Christensen, like, in my opinion, was great casting. But George, you need to learn how to write dialogue sometimes. And that did not help him in any way, especially when we got to like the more whiny lines, where if we had context to him a bit better, it wouldn't have come off how it did. So to have him come back, reprise his role, and not only get the Vader lines, but in my opinion, episode 3, when we got to watch, or no, episode 4, I believe, when they were giving us the flashbacks to
Yeah.
the duel while we were also watching them fight. I thought that was huge in getting to show that chemistry again, because Hayden and Ian McGregor had huge chemistry on screen with each other. And I thought that was abundantly clear, even when he was just in the suit.
Mhm.
I've always wanted, between the scene where we watch Ben Kenobi get killed and we see Obi-Wan leave Darth Vader, or well, yeah, Darth Vader as a pile of fucking ash. And we never get to see, we see this weak ass fight with Ben Kenobi getting
He's like
vaporized.
holding out his lightsaber, and then he's just like,
But like to
And
see
Vader
the
too,
emotion,
like,
to finally see a fight where you can actually see Darth Vader's anger, the revenge and the "you left me to die"
Mhm.
finally come out and in the fight. I was like, oh, this is
and you still saw some
magical.
of Anakin's mannerisms, which I loved. Like, as much
Mhm.
as I love that scene in Rogue One where he just completely eviscerates them, like, that still feels like old Vader. You know what I mean? Like, slow mechanic. He's moving a bit quicker, but it's intimidating just because he's like coming down the hallway. In the fights with Obi-Wan, it felt like, yes, this is Anakin still fighting. Like, he's slowed down because he's mainly mechanics, but the few times where he does get physically aggressive, you start seeing those old traits starting to come out, and I loved it.
I listened to a really cool pod, or not a podcast, a video earlier this week about that, actually. When you see Darth Vader and Reva, the third sister, fight, he's only actually gauged at like giving out like 85% in that fight. At top, that's the maximum he puts in for effort. Yeah, and someone pointed that out in the video, that the way you can tell is because he never puts his second hand on the lightsaber. And I
All
was like,
one-handed shit.
Yeah.
that's horrifying.
Yeah. That one where he like really put her in her place, was that, like, that scene was intense, because you're just like, it reminded me of, it's like they finally gave Darth Vader a Star Killer moment, like 100% pulling the ship out of the sky even at the very end. But just like everything about it was like, yeah, this is effortless force. Like, I'm not even having to use any physical, like, it's like you can't even touch me if you wanted to. And he's just like doing like a weird like wiggly dance. He's like, yeah, you can't really touch me. He keeps on walking back, and then yeah, I don't know. I was like, this is really cool, because in the past, like you said, with the crappy lightsaber fights and stuff, they just weren't able to. It's not that they were crappy; they were the best for their time. But it's nice that we can like kind of see these
They had
things
like
happen.
little wires that they had to try to conceal in everything too, just for the lighting to work. Like, it's amazing going from any Star Wars film over the past decade, or even the previous, the prequels,
Mhm.
to that very first movie. It's amazing how much this franchise has revolutionized special effects. Like, everyone shits on the special effects with like the blue screen of the prequels and how hard it was to act with. But look where we're at now. We don't get to the fucking dome where we're simulating the environment that we're going to act in
Mhm.
without doing that first.
And at the time, still, it was the most ambitious thing that anybody was doing cinematically. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Star
So-
Wars, the prequels.
I was thinking one of those magazines that came out, I actually got it as a gift, but it's like the 45th anniversary or whatever of Times, and there was stuff in it that I didn't actually know that was really kind of cool. One of which was like Spielberg and Lucas were like best friends in film school. But Lucas actually was told by every single person he pretty much went to school with and who was a mentor of his that this was going to flop.
Mm-hmm.
They went and they did the original screening of A New Hope. And like there was actually critics, like well-renowned critics, that walked out of there being like, this shouldn't even be a movie. It's going to waste so much money. And to this day, it's the most influential franchise. Like there's stories I know and love that honestly I can straight up say like copied parts of Star Wars or took from parts of Star Wars, like Harry Potter and Lord of the
The
Rings.
hero's journey.
Don't
It's
even
the best
started.
interpretation of the hero's journey, and I love it.
And it was right after the war. Like it was just brilliant. But it was because Lucas decided to do something that hadn't been done before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my comment on that, Sabian, is they have really set the stage every step of the way of like, this is where we're going to take it now. And then there's so many people that follow after that.
Absolutely.
And you can get away with some of the really cheesy lines, and you kind of come to love the cheesy lines. Like, honestly, Anakin was a bit of a, like he was a bit of a whiner, but so was his son.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at all this coming from the scruffy looking nerf herder. Like,
I don't know. I did think though that Kenobi overall was a better viewer experience than Boba. And maybe that's because my Boba expectations were so high, but let's be honest, my Kenobi expectations are pretty high too, right? Like, I don't know what there was a vast difference between, you know, how the shows were made, obviously, but this one played out like a movie. It was very entertaining from beginning to end. It had nice swells of arcs between it, and I was genuinely always really interested in watching the next episode. Not because I'm like, what the hell are they going to do next? Like, is it going to be another flashback episode? Is it going to be another, like with Boba, you know what I mean? You were kind of like, where are we on the timeline of this story?
What's
4
going on?
episodes into it, and you know, I felt like it flowed really nicely, and everything happened when you expected it to, but it was still unexpected whenever it happened, you know?
that
I agree.
can't agree more. As someone, and this is funny because I think Colton knows this about me, and I think I told you, Sabian, when you're down for Alt Waves, but as a Star Wars fan, the moment Disney Plus was announced, I told several friends, I am not getting this platform until the Obi-Wan series is out. And this is before it was even announced, but there were even times that the rumors have been like, no, we know McGregor wants to do it. And we know Disney can make a lot of money off this. And I'm sitting there being like, I'm not touching a single property till it drops. And then to have actually somehow done that and come in to watch this series, and obviously I've watched a bunch of stuff on The Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
Wait.
And,
But have
like,
you watched The Mandalorian?
No, but I feel, and that's where I want to go to the point with Obi-Wan. I feel way more enticed now to give them a chance and be brought into this world, because I feel like there is still a level of care that was shown through this property because of how it showed everything we've talked about already.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not gonna lie, Rogue One was very good, but as a fan, it killed so many characters and their weight to the story, in my opinion. Like Kyle Katarn, in my opinion, is still my favorite character that is tied to the main story, but not depending on like if you're into games or books. Or Admiral Thrawn, a villain that
Bro.
should have been used at some point.
I'm
We
just
might see him
saying.
still. We might see him though, Nate. We still have Ahsoka's series that's coming up, and she directly references Admiral Thrawn in Mandalorian.
You need
No,
to watch
and that's why I'm more willing
Have you
to
not
give those
watched
a chance.
Mandalorian yet?
No, that's what I want to get into. That's why this series gives me more of a want to actually go and watch that, because after Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, as a fan, I really felt like this series was leaving me behind as a fan. Like, I was willing to accept my time with Star Wars is coming to its end. There's a chapter of it that was for me, and that is all. But now, after coming back and watching the series that I've been waiting for as a diehard, that's re-inspired, I guess, my desire to actually now want to go and dive into The Mandalorian, knowing that it is good, but also like wanting to see like how it'll build into this universe now, because I can have a lot more faith that, although knowing there will be some things that will not be how I would have personally wanted them as a fan coming into the Disney split, there's still going to be care and thought to make sure that it works in its own way to make the story enticing and make the characters workable.
if I can add to that love, my friend, they did everything that I heard, even prior to my watching of Mandalorian, Boba, all this. I was told that Dave Filoni, John Favreau's take on writing all of what they have so far, they are the most qualified people in the industry to take the reins for George Lucas that there is,
I
from what I've
literally,
been told.
I could not agree more. Specifically, Dave Filoni, when it comes to story writing, he was involved and he created the Clone Wars, essentially. So he was involved very much in he was the last person working basically with Star Wars right now that worked under George Lucas, and he cared a lot about George Lucas's vision and his story. And he created the character Ahsoka, and he created so many the Grand Inquisitors. And I may be wrong about the Inquisitors, but he created a lot of things within the prequel world that really added. And I don't know about you, but I loved the Clone Wars. I've watched it multiple times. But they are in charge, if you will, of the Mandalorian. And if I'm just gonna say, like, for me personally, as a Star Wars fan, if Mandalorian is the best thing that we could ever get for like a series of Star Wars, Kenobi is at a 7, and Boba Fett is at like a 3 for me personally.
What I hear about Boba Fett is that it would have been a lot better if they just made it part of a Mandalorian season.
It basically is a continuation of the Mandalorian. Yes, absolutely. Like the best parts of Boba Fett, the series, are the continuation parts of the Mandalorian.
And that's where I hope, because I haven't read the article, but I saw something about how there's 9 more projects in the works now. I hope Disney recognizes which properties to actually make as the lead standalone and which ones work way better as add-ins to stories that are already happening. Well, like starting The Mandalorian, as a fan just looking at it, I am thinking you don't even need a Boba Fett standalone. You have the perfect world to throw him into. Why would you try to market it separately? You're not doing yourself a service.
I will say too, they're very entwined, and I think there is no one without the other. And also, I'm saying like a lot of negative things about Boba. I actually really do love the series still. Like
I hear there's a lot of good things. It's
Yeah.
just the hamperings of like being a standalone versus being something that the MCU is doing, I guess.
Chills, man. The first episode though, in the Sarlacc where he's like climbing out, and I don't know, that was a cool moment for me. I was like,
Incredible.
oh shit!
Finally getting to understand that, yeah, man.
And his
So,
journey
like,
with
on.
the people that saved him and everything.
Yeah, and I thought it was a really cool take on the Sand People. Like they humanized them for the first time in the entire series. That was
Yeah, I don't think we call them that anymore, but yeah.
Finally, in Mandalorian, when we
Tusken
got to
Raiders.
see a little
Tusken
bit
Raiders.
of like their culture and their people fleshed out and how they actually interact, and like that they're not just like the savage race of people that raid everything that we've heard of and everything else. This did even more with Boba. I love that. I couldn't agree with you more, dude.
That was my favorite part of the series, actually, probably. And then I'll even just throw in like, I watched the documentary thing about like Boba, and it's like Boba Fett was like a character in the story that had 0 lines pretty much, but was a super badass that became like one of the most iconic characters in all of Star Wars.
Disintegration.
Part of it was because he was a mystery.
Yeah.
People fill in their own blanks about who he was, what he was. And it was cool when they gave a backstory with like, this was his dad kind of thing, and this is how it got done. But I think if you go too far, you do kill the mystery a little bit, and then it becomes a little harder for people to love that character as much.
No, big time.
This actually brings me up with a gripe with Solo. I've told this to Colton numerous times. We never needed to see the fucking Kessel Run. Let that be the one thing we never see happen.
I thought that was my favorite part about the movie. I thought we didn't need to see Kira. I didn't think we needed Kira, but
I would argue against that. The thing that I think we never needed to see, because they never did anything with it, was the Darth Maul thing. Honestly, I thought the Kessel Run and Donald Glover's take on Lando Calrissian, my God, that was
bravo.
They just crammed so much into that, like Chewie, Han, the life debt. Like I would have much rather like let the Kessel Run be something that is literally the cliffhanger. Like they are about to go do it. Yeah,
that would have been cool.
That would have been interesting, actually.
I think going into like what you just said, there are some things in this universe we need to not see so that we can perceive it as grand. Like in the case of Revan, we do not need to see the Mandalorian Wars. We can see snippets of it, but we don't need a series completely deconstructing the Mandalorian Wars because it'll kind of deconstruct the grandeur of Revan as a character.
You know, I will say the Mandalorian Wars is basically. I don't know if we'll ever actually see that. Well, there's maybe because they are doing the new video, like the new
And
game
we're getting
and
a
everything.
remake of the game.
Yeah, no,
so,
that's a
like,
valid point. That's a valid. But I was gonna say because they kind of shifted it to the War of Mandalore, which is like the Clone Wars era war, like galactic war on Mandalore, and
Yeah.
you know, I guess I won't dive into it because you're gonna experience yourself. Watch watch some stuff, but
Yeah.
I agree. There's a lot of things that they'll hit harder if you don't actually ever see them. You know.
Yeah.
One thing I do
Yeah.
need to see though is I need to see the final battle between Maul and Obi-Wan. I know you're saying like
Yes, dude. Yes, that was.
Yes,
but I-
In live action, yeah,
right?
because
Like that was
dude,
when-
I've seen hints that Ray Park has been back in set doing stuff, and I'm like, for what?
I have seen and like with Ahsoka, right? I've seen that as well, but I don't know. You know, that would be interesting. It would be interesting to see.
You know, I
So
would
like
either.
when I first heard about the Obi-Wan series, I started to think, I'm like, oh, what are they gonna do? Like, are they literally gonna remake Clone Wars and Rebels, but in like a Netflix live action series? Because like I'll watch the fuck out of that as long
Yeah.
as there's not goddamn fillers.
Oh,
You know? Like,
Word.
I just realized if there is another season, there can only be one more, and it's climacting with Maul and using the third sister as the catalyst for it because she's not dead. She's off. She's on the light side. We can use her as the Leia for season 2 to lead Maul to Obi-Wan and just close that arc. That is, I think, the only story that is worth telling for Obi-Wan.
And you know what?
Hang on a second,
I
too,
think they
to
would.
add to
I don't
that.
think they would call it Kenobi either. They'd probably call it Maul. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
no.
Well,
You know.
Yeah.
This is the big interjection that I wanted to, or not, a big piece that I wanted to like submit to this today. And it's still in Star Wars, and it's not exactly on Kenobi, but if you guys have ever played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, so one thing that I love is that, and one thing that I think that I really do want to see, and
The
I'm
actor.
going to make a speculation as to what we might see, because it was basically the way they did it was they announced, or not, we got to see Fortress Inquisitoris.
Yeah.
And then the day that episode came out is the same day that they announced that Star Wars Jedi Survivor
Yeah.
is coming out. And the only thing that we've been told from the developers and the writers about what the story is going to be is that it is, if you thought Fallen Order was grotesque and dark, saddle up. And second, is that this is going to take place in the same time period as Obi-Wan, the show that we just watched, is taking place in.
So we're gonna see the path.
My-
We're gonna see a lot about the path for sure.
What
My
I'm curious
speculation
about-
is that it's going to be a lot about the path. And I think what we might still see yet is because a lot of people thought what might happen, because they were bringing up Fortress Inquisitoris, is that Cal Kestis might make a live action presence. And I say rather that we
Great
might see Obi-Wan get brought into Cal Kestis's video game universe for a little piece.
If that happens, there are a few things that I think Star Wars, like the writing staff, need to keep an eye on, and that's how many people Obi-Wan interacts with during this isolation period. We have people can know about him, but his interaction with Jedi in particular needs to be as minimal as possible for the weight of everything he says to Luke and how everything continues on to continue. But what I would love to see is Kyle Kestis, like I just beat Fallen Order last year. I can't remember his name, but him brought in because he was the best thing about Gotham. Both of his interpretations of Joker were fantastic, and he is a great actor. And he showed his chops, I think, voice acting and providing the model for that game. So if you can bring that in, but also you got to think of continuity, because is it going to take place in between Fallen Order and Fallen Order 2? Is it going to take place after Fallen Order 2? In which case, is the release going to coincide after and give enough time for the fan base to get through that game? Because I'm all for that. I am all for that. But that is the complexity, I guess, of trying to add video game characters in, is making sure that you don't undercut either story by just trying to get what we would call in wrestling a cheap pop.
Yeah. Well, I think I wanted to know what your guys' opinion on that was like, do you guys think that it would be right to have Cal brought into the Obi-Wan or I guess the cinematic live action universe, or would you rather
Because
just see maybe a homage like we saw Vader getting in the video game universe with Cal, like Obi-Wan come in or something like that?
I think
imagine an Empire style movie where the ending ends with Vader killing Cal. Like just another Rogue One
Oh,
esque like suicide
cool.
mission. It's the end of the character because
yeah.
we do have to kill off the rest of the Jedi at some point. There's a reason Vader stopped caring about hunting them by the Death Star in A New Hope, and that's because they're done. We don't even need Inquisitors anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They can't call it The Last Jedi, though.
That's true.
In theory, yeah, no. I mean, Luke, I mean, yeah, no, you are right. I think I've always kind of imagined that I'm like, yo, the galaxy is a big place. There's other Jedi just like doing very similar things somewhere else. And honestly, the Ahsoka story arc kind of does prove that in a sense, because nobody thought, and you know, oh my God, Ahsoka,
But he is someone who got away from Vader. That's the reason Cal, if he's brought into the cinematic universe, he needs to be killed by Vader because
yeah,
it's not a case of a character who has no affiliation, like off on a random planet just dealing with random shit. We have a character who has gotten away from Vader, and we know what Vader did during this period. Any Jedi he came across, unless you're Obi-Wan and basically the Emperor's telling you, no, you're not going down that route.
was not one of the lightsabers that they showcased at the path or whatever. Was not one of them Cal Kestis's interesting blade or hilt
actually-
rather? I feel like I saw something about that. I could be mistaken, but that could signify
I heard
his death.
talking about that too. So I don't know. I don't know if you are mistaken. I feel like that was actually on the web somewhere. I read it briefly. I also think this is the last thing I'm going to say because I'm going to go carry on with my night probably. But I think that if Disney did things the way that I wanted them to do it, and they probably won't, it would be Ahsoka's series would be everything we're talking about right now. Like they introduced like, Obi-Wan's peace with Vader. They showed what they needed to of Luke and Leia. I don't think they need to bring them back unless it's maybe a bit here or there. I think that Obi-Wan, you could bring back the snippets of, you could show Maul's story through Ahsoka's timeline and story.
Mm-hmm.
As the primary person in Clone Wars, who you really like, who's badass and you like to watch, is Ahsoka. So if they were to really capitalize on that, they could do kind of all we're wanting to see. And I think that Ahsoka could be one of those ones where you could do 9 seasons of it, and I'm not going to get mad at you.
Yeah.
What? You know?
Do you want to? Can I want to introduce something, and it's a very interesting theory to everybody. It has to do with Ahsoka. The fact that she is even in the Mandalorian, which is set 5 years after the Death Star is kablooey. The second Death Star at that. It's 5 years after that. The fact that she's in that alone states that there has been some sort of multiversal change because she dies in Rebels to Darth Vader. But then Ezra goes into the world between worlds, pulls her out, changes that moment, she carries on, and that signifies so much about the fucking Filoni and universe, if you will, within Star Wars, that literally, if they wanted to, they could completely retcon things that maybe certain people thought were out of, Luke's character or out of, there's just in that one action alone of changing Ezra going into the world between worlds, changing the past, and Ahsoka being alive, states that so much can be. And she name drops Thrawn. They're looking for Thrawn and Ezra. Like it is beyond like the Ahsoka series could be everything.
Because I would be okay with this because we have to remember there are significant time jumps between episodes 4, 5, and 6. Like there's 3 or 5 years between Han getting frozen carbonite to the infiltration of Jabba's palace. So if, say, due to these events, there are still some hidden wandering Jedi. That's basically how we would look at him. I would be completely okay with maybe season 8 or no, not season 8, but maybe a prequel mini arc being dedicated to Ahsoka and Luke meeting up in that time. Because I'm sorry, Yoda is not training Luke in the art of the lightsaber.
You need to watch The Mandalorian, my friend.
Yeah.
You just need to watch it. You're missing out. There's so much that you don't know about.
That's
There,
okay. I know. Especially when it came to like spoilers of young Luke, I was like, you know what? I don't want to know what part of the time frame this is in. I'm gonna wait and just see what happens.
That would be interesting too at a very young age. Actually, I didn't think about that. That's
Yeah,
very
that's what I'm
interesting.
thinking. Like in between him getting his hand cut off and then going and infiltrating Jabba's palace, have there be a brief interaction where, say, Yoda sends Luke off and he finds Ahsoka because Yoda realizes, hey, so I'm old and frail, and being on your back's not going to help you with lightsaber training. So go over here. There's someone who
I'll
can
just
help, like,
whisper
just hone your art
instructions
a
in
bit.
your ear.
Right,
But-
left.
I think what actually happened more so was that Luke, they don't really explain it, but I feel like Luke found Ahsoka was hiding. Ahsoka was like the apprentice of Anakin. Ahsoka did shit that she felt she couldn't come back from in the Clone Wars, and she's probably hiding like Obi-Wan somewhere, hoping no one ever finds her. And I think maybe there's an innate sort of force connection between Luke and Ahsoka because of the connection, Padawan master connection between her and his dad, that Luke eventually found her in the galaxy. And it would be cool to see that, like how that happened.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and I think that'd be cool as a flashback. Like you could do that in the like ninth season of Ahsoka and have it be a flashback episode to when she first met Luke, in between that period where he's coming to grips with like losing his hand, Vader being his father,
Yeah.
him needing some guidance because Obi-Wan and Yoda are being very tight-lipped on everything.
Yeah. That's actually really. I've never thought about that. That could easily, like, you could fit that in there and back that truck right back out of there, like no harm, no foul to
Yeah.
the stories too.
they could do two things that would literally connect everything that's happened, and I wouldn't be mad. They could do the Ahsoka series, carry it on, and make it literally about everything else that we want to see, we've mentioned. And then right after they do that, they could do the Ezra series. And
Yeah.
they could. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Clone
Yep.
Wars were good. They were really good. Now please do them in.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
loved Rebels, man. And I think
Oh.
that the fact that they're teasing a Thrawn return and an Ezra return, we might get to see another movie, another standalone series for Ezra where all this shit pops off and we might get to see the fall of Thrawn. And
I'm gonna feel
I
real bad if this turns into a new trilogy coming out, just completely retconning 7, 8, and 9, and then being like, yeah, no, that's the alternative universe. Here's the real 7, 8, and 9 after everything else we've built up because what we've done now doesn't work going into
Yeah.
the later movies.
Well, I'd love to. That's actually something I heard too, is like officially that is getting wiped out of the canon history. A lot of
I hope
people
they learned the
complained
lesson.
about it, and I guess they're getting what they wanted because Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau didn't like how it canonically fit either.
You need to
Um,
write it as a full story. That's why the original trilogies
That's
worked.
what I'd like
is-
to see is what they'll do with that now. Is if they do wipe that out of what we understand as canon. And my friend and I have always said this. There's the canon, there's and then there's
Legend.
our head canon, everybody's personal head canon of what, like you said, what everyone would wish would happen in the series,
Yeah.
But like I said, how I want to know is how they would go into going and fixing that. Do we get a new trilogies or episodes of any kind that fill in those gaps now? Like, it's a bold move to erase it.
I can't see a corporation bowing down like that, though. You know what I'm saying? Like if there's
They already
people,
did,
there are
though, when
people
they
like
bought the
us.
property.
There's people like
They already
us that
did,
don't
though.
like it, but like we're all good. We still watch it and like whatever, right? But there are people that they paint it out to be like a whole bunch of like right winged alt whatever, like crazy folk don't like this, and we have good values and stuff. I don't think that they were gonna like backtrack on those values that they try to promote. You know what I mean? I can't see a corporation doing that.
We got to realize it's the corporation though that is also doing this exact same thing with other things. They can learn easily from the comic book universe and be like, oh no, sometimes we need a retcon. And if they need to justify, they can be like, well, we did it when we started. When we bought Star Wars, when we bought Star Wars, we said all of this shit here is now not canon. It is Star Wars Legends. It has its own category. So
Yeah.
now what we're gonna so who's to say that after 5, 6, 7 years of doing these shows and building up their own universe based off this, that they then look and be like, so do you guys see more money in just remaking a new trilogy based off all of this? We'll get the old fans back that left, and the new fans won't give a fuck because they'll love it because it's a continuation of the stuff they've been buying for the past decade.
That's
And there
true.
you go.
Well, that's actually something I like about me and my father-in-law have talked about this for years. He's a massive Star Wars fan as well. Is that we would love to see some new standalone stuff that goes outside the bounds of everything we've talked about with all the characters that fit within the time frame of the Skywalkers. All of them. Like, let's go into the Old Republic. We don't have to talk about it. It might be in contrary to what you were saying, because like I said, they might go into that and start doing standalone things where they go into the Old Republic and talk about the Mandalore Wars. We're already seeing that the High Republic time frame is sitting just before, I believe, all of the Old Republic stuff. So who's to say that won't spin out into talking about it or dipping into introducing it at least?
With that in mind, do you think that at any point in time there will be a reason or I guess, fan base that would watch an Exar Kun based movie or TV series, an Origins of the Sith?
Oh yeah, I would watch the crap out of that. Maybe not if it was marketed as X or whatever, because I'm sorry, I don't know who that character is. But
in Sith lore, he is the definitive first Sith Lord.
But if it was marketed as like the beginning of the Sith or something like that, like a birth of the Sith or something, because it could be like a play on Revenge of, right? But then I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna eat this up with a freaking silver spoon.
That I agree with. I would love to see that. And one thing I'm already excited about is about that High Republic that they're talking about from what I did in reading is we're going to see a lot of origin points for Jedi, because we're going to see like the lightsaber models that they were flexing and showing in the teasers were looking really, really old. They were not like the cool lightsabers we've come to see in the series and everything we've watched so far.
I haven't been a fan of the High Republic, but I also haven't looked in, like, I haven't gotten the books or anything. I have an Audible account. I could get it, but for some reason, something about it was just like this. I think I was kind of put off by like the recent trilogy a little bit, and I was like, this just seems like it might be more of the same. I'm just gonna download the old school Darth Maul books and the old school Thrawn books, and I dove head first, and I've got all the Thrawn, all the non-canon and the canon ones now, I guess, and I love them all. They're just so freaking good.
That OG Thrawn trilogy is so dark and just so good.
I definitely recommend diving into any of the High Republic time period stuff there is, because right off the teaser that they did for the video of it, the dude playing the drum, the aliens that were playing the drums, those, I believe, from everything that I can see in detail, are what I read up in those in the High Republic stuff are the Nogri, which are a race of, like, culturally they are pirates. Like, so the Mandalorians are basically a warrior mercenary culture. They worship weapons and being mercenaries, and that way of life is a religion. With the Nogri being a pirate, a glorified space pirate in the most brutal of fashions is what these guys are about. So that I recommend definitely looking into it, because it's exciting stuff, and it's one of the reasons I'm so stoked to play that game.
Fuck yeah.
I got one last question for the group, because I'm sure we're gonna like cut off here soon. But what was everyone's thoughts on? So we talked about Leia, we talked about Obi-Wan, we talked about Anakin. What was everyone's thoughts on like young Luke and like Owen, and how they kind of?
I loved Owen. I thought
Owen was great.
The scene where he finally let Ben go and meet Luke, that tug at my heartstrings way more than I thought it was going to. Especially with the start of like Ben just having that ship that we've seen Luke play with, and having Owen just toss it aside, tell him to get the F out, and then also having him save Ben's skin. when the third
Well,
sister was
yeah.
going through everything.
My favorite
I
moment was
remember.
when my
No, I was gonna say about Owen and Baru is all, but like I remember
It
way
was
back
awesome.
when those two the actors, I can't remember their actual names for who plays Baru and Owen, but I remember when they first got to premiere as Owen and Baru in their first ever, and there was some behind the scenes footage, and they were talking as like we were fans growing up of this, so to be able to be characters in this show is, and now. Well, not only do we get to see them be characters, but like Baru is a bad
I
bitch.
was just gonna say, wow, she was the one who had it a whole like pulling out the weapons. Like, we knew this day would come. Don't tell me you didn't think this. And she's
well,
the one. You can tell she
she's
like,
like, yo, they're coming. The bad guys are coming. And she's like, whose fault is that? Like, Ben's nowhere to be found. Whose fault is that? All right, pull out the guns. Let's go.
she's the one who got it from the start, and I think that's because she was disconnected from the Skywalker family.
Mm-hmm.
Owen knew Shmi. Like, not saying Baru didn't know Shmi as well, but Owen was very much like Anakin. Like, he lost a brother. Like, he had someone come into his life right at the end of something horrible, leave, thinking that he can get through this stuff after war, and then finds out, oh, so now he's dead, and I'm looking after his son. And he was your
Great.
pupil.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, like, I trust you. And Peru's probably sitting there like, war's complicated. I have a feeling we're not being told something here. Owen, calm the fuck down. Just you know what? And I loved like how calm she was, and because it really kind of showed thinking about scenes of them in A New Hope. You can see and feel that semblance between them, which I think is very key. I think that's why Ian McGregor is as renowned in his role as Obi-Wan as he is, because it feels like a young Alec Guinness. It feels like someone that turns into the guy that we know. And I think that's key in casting with characters like Owen and Prue is watching them on screen and feeling like this is
them.
young. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the continuity of characterization was very believable. I was like, oh yeah, like I can see how you get where you get and how you get the attitudes you do and how you relate to Luke in the way that you like. I can see it. This is a very believable prequel to this. And I said I was done, but there's one last thing that tugged at my heartstrings as he said that. And it was introduced. It wasn't part of canon before. It wasn't like I've never seen it anywhere else, but it was like kind of like, hey, we're going to do this and let's see how you guys react. Was bringing back the third sister, but as a survivor of like the moment that everyone's like, he fucking killed kids.
Yeah, true.
The fact that she like, and it makes sense. Like the fact what gripped my heartstrings the most was when Vader called it out and said, "Did you think I didn't see it, youngling?" Like that's the moment where it really hit. Because at first I was like, "This is cool. This makes sense." Of course, someone would probably survive that onslaught and probably go on this plot, but the fact that Vader knows and he's just playing, he's like, I'm waiting. Like at some point you're gonna try it, and I'll just finish the job. But like,
well, that's something that was super cool with Vader too. Is like we've only gotten to see some of like the most brutal of what Vader's capable of in a lot of video games. A lot of the TV show, there's a lot of movies. Sorry, that we have even to their base core. We don't get to see him be a bad motherfucker. We just hear the reputation. So finally getting all these new movies and all these new video games where you see him kind of pulling at these puppet strings along the way with Starkiller, and then you get to see a lot of him doing the same thing with Reva, with the third sister. Like I just loved that. I loved
and
that.
it felt like an evolution of that side of Anakin or Vader, as like basically we know, like they are one and the same. They're just like two sides of a coin, but like it still feels like the character we watch grow because we know the history of Anakin now. We know he's a general. Like dude got onto the council and quite frankly was only turned away because they were so blinded by their own attributes at that time that led to their own demise. So this is someone who led people, fought people, dealt with a lot of shit, and knew how the system that would soon become the Imperial Army would work. And he got to the upper echelon of that point. And it's awesome getting to see that truly used because he's intimidating in A New Hope through presence. He doesn't do a whole lot. You have Moff Tarkin there kind of being like the pseudo like face of power. and you don't really feel like Vader's presence until the Trench Run and then Empire. But here you really kind of see how that's going to lead into that, because it's understandable how an individual of Vader's stature at this point over the next 7 years now is going to eventually want to be there monitoring things, but not be the one doing the talking, and just being able to see what everyone's doing and then make his moves when he needs to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they really do a good job about making that make sense. You know, they say the reason why we don't see Darth Vader flex a lot of his power in the especially the old movies that is because we didn't have the technology to do all that crazy stuff
learned
back then.
restraint
But to
finally.
make it story wise make sense as they explained it was because he was just so old by this point. He'd already been in this suit for a good
Yeah.
few decades. Like he's not quite as the Darth Vader even as he used to be.
And he's learned a lot of restraint, especially I think after that final fight with Obi-Wan, because it was his own prowess and his own lust for revenge
Yeah.
that led to that.
He overdid it,
especially
and it's like he showed too many of his cards or whatever at the table. He got eaten out real quick, you know.
Yeah, and then when the Emperor finally like set him straight, I think that's when we start to see the shift into the Vader we know. Someone who understands they need to be more reserved. They don't have a choice in the matter anymore because they are now under a microscope, because that's a threat from your
Mhm.
Sith master.
Mm-hmm.
That's
But
a very
always
different.
the continuity of the Sith is like there's always two, but there's also another continuity piece, which is there's always two, but the Padawan's always replaceable.
Yeah.
Like at
Yep.
no point is Sidious saying to himself, "I have an attachment to any of you." Like
Mhm.
Darth Maul on is instantly Dooku.
That's why he goes for Luke instantly. The
Yeah.
moment he
right?
has
And
Luke
goes for Luke
there, he's
instantly
like,
because Vader is getting old and not as like he sees a new shiny Padawan who can do more badass things.
and who's to say over these 2 decades that we're going through, Vader's not putting everything together at the same time.
Oh, he
Understanding,
absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dooku was the
Well-
apprentice before that, and all this before that, and understanding the Sith Lord teachings and understanding
We know
how much
that he
he's
is.
under his thumb.
Mhm.
We know that he is to a degree because some of the comics that come out filling in about Darth Vader's time leading up to even
intends to
seeing him in the original
overthrow him at some
trilogy, he
Mhm.
was doing things like conditioning himself because he found out very quickly that one of the biggest weaknesses he had was in his suit being hardwired to really be more damaged by the lightning.
Yeah.
Anytime he was in trouble, the Emperor would use the lightning in the comic, and it was in the beginning times, it was disabling. And so the comic goes on to show him actually make a modification in one of his fortresses where he goes in and he keeps himself under a low voltage electrocution where he's conditioning himself so that one day it won't work. And that's where we get to see in the final scene in the original trilogy where he gets
Yeah.
shocked and it just doesn't work anymore. And he just walks through it and throws him off the ledge. So we do know that he is calculated in a lot of the ways and in filling all that in, right?
And he has been since the start, to be honest, too, because the moment the Emperor tells him, "You killed her in your frustration," like the reason Anakin or Vader falls to his knees is
Bastard.
because he understands he's been played, but now he has to,
He's got to
play
follow
the
through.
role.
Yeah, he's got to follow through. He made his bed. Now he's got to sleep in it.
and that's also when he finds Luke, because I
Yeah.
love that people really paid attention to the fight sequence of Empire, and I love how this started with Obi-Wan, and now we're just dissecting characters, but the initial fight works in 3 acts. The first act is Vader finding Luke and being like, "Oh, it's my boy. All right, let's see
My
what you
boy."
got. Let's see what you got. All right, well, I mean,
You got ways to go,
kid.
kid.
You got a ways to go. Second act. All right, let's see how you act when I don't even want to use my weapon. Oh, you haven't
I love
dealt with this before? Wow.
That
Oh,
classic line of
Jesus
his.
Christ.
That classic line of his. You have grown strong, but you are not a Jedi yet.
And then the final one when Vader gets pissed off because Luke finally lands a shot. And that's when he loses the hand. It's like, oh, by the way, join me. Yeah, the dude I serve, like I don't like him. I know I cut off your hand, but like I'm your dad.
I'm your dad.
Oh, you didn't
son.
know? You didn't know that? You didn't know that? Oh yeah, no, I'm your pops. And
Weird
join
time for a family reunion, but I'm your dad.
and
All right, guys. Yeah, we gotta wrap it up. We are 8 minutes beyond, but you know what this tells me is that we should probably do some more Star Wars nerd nights because I feel as though we could probably fill up a few more of these hour segments easily.
you give me a generation
Anytime.
to talk about, and
Yeah.
we can go off.
All right. Well, I'll plan one. We'll plan one again. We'll try to do it like once every couple months or something like that. And I know there's gonna be more Star Wars to talk about soon too. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys all taking the time of your day to hang out and shit. You guys are fucking badass. I'm glad that the general consensus seems to be that the fans of Star Wars, old and new, are pretty happy with Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like
I'll
overall,
go back and watch Mandalorian now because
yeah.
of it.
And I'm so excited for you actually in a way. I'm glad that you stood your, you stuck to your conviction, if you will, and you're like, I'm not gonna do it, right. And then now you get to go experience it all with a brand new, fresh, open brain, and I'm kind of jealous because the child, like, you gotta call me after you get to the end of season 2, bro, and we're gonna hug it out. It'll be
Can
good.
we just put that into a group call? Because I just want to see your reaction to a lot of this shit, bro.
I would, yeah.
Try
We
to
could.
schedule it that we can do one of these immediately after. Like I'll try to
Yes.
watch it right before we get in, and then we'll just come in, and I'll be like, "Wow."
All right, guys. Well, much love. We appreciate you. Anybody watching? I think we got a special guest booked for next week, but I don't know who it is right now. We'll announce it later on. We love you. We appreciate you. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace out, guys.
Force be with you.
Yeah, may the force be with you. That's
May the force be
important.
with you.
All right, peace.